Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Can It Take a K26, the show where we take a variety of blasters and see if they can be upgraded using a K26 spring. I am your host, Captain Xavier, and this episode will once again deviate from Nerf and instead look at a number of blasters from the Busby Air Warriors line. Our first contestant is the Serge 6. The Serge 6 is part of one of their power lock connector systems, which means you can connect a number of blasters together to create one ridiculously large, magnificent, and totally cumbersome blaster. Being Busby, especially earlier Busby, or at least not the current line of Busby, it is of course ergonomically designed for small children and not people with large monkey hands like me. The grip is too small for even my pinky, and the priming handle is a little bit cumbersome for my hands as well. It has a very short prime, but we'll get into the numbers later. It is a 6-shot revolver, rotates on prime, which is of course superior to the ones that rotate as you fire, so it's not likely to jam, but as with early Busby Air Warrior stuff, not particularly powerful either. But let's see if we can't do something about that by seeing if this thing can take a K26. Alright, well, we are in. Alright, well, let's take a look. That is a tiny plunger tube. That is too small for K26. But let's see what we can do here. Alright. I've disassembled the thing. Hopefully I can reassemble it. And this is the spring, and that is tragic. It's also slightly tapered, which is interesting. So what do we have that's comparable to that and is going to get enough compression? Because that, as always, is going to be the real trick. Alright, that was a no to K26 for the Serge 6, but yes to a spring upgrade. The stock draw weight was approximately 4 kilograms, and that may just be because it was left primed, I don't know, but it was not very impressive. It was getting 58 FPS and an average range of 35. Modified, it has a 5.7 kilogram draw, is getting 68 FPS, and is now hitting 40 feet. So, still not an impressive blaster. However, given the nature of the internals, how well they are designed and how well they are reinforced, I would be willing to bet this could actually take a much heavier spring load. I just didn't have a suitable spring on hand that fit and could get enough compression. The one I used increased it a little bit, and there's still definitely no concern about it not priming. Very strong priming mechanism. The one downside is it does have the hollow bar in the middle, which is why the slide is able to go back forward when you fire it. But it's much beefier than in previous models, and because it's straight in line, I do think it could take a much heavier spring if you could get one. If for some reason you wanted to run this because of maybe you liked the power lock system, which we will get into in the next video. So there you have it. On to the next contestant. Our next contestant is the Serge 10, another part of the power lock system. This is a 10-round revolver and is primed from the front, which is actually fairly unusual for most revolvers. It fires from the lower barrel rather than the upper barrel. So the priming, the whole mechanism is going to be in the middle, which means that there isn't going to be some long, complicated connector between the pump and the actual cylinder, which is good. That speaks well of its ability to take a larger spring load. And as being part of the power connector system, it allows you to connect the Serge 6 onto it. I assume there are more in this line. I haven't looked into them. I don't have them. These are the two that showed up at Goodwill, so I grabbed them so that I could do an episode of them together. Now let's see if this one has better internals than that one, or if it's just the exact same thing but with a larger cylinder. Only way to find out is to open it up and see if it can take a K26. Alright, well that does look like a larger plunger tube, or at least a longer plunger tube. Let's see if we can get to it. Good news is that is a very solid catch design, because it's actually pulling rather than pushing down. That is, I think that could probably take a massive spring load, or at least I'm gonna try. First question, K26. Yes! This time K26 will actually fit, and it looks like I have managed to find a piece that is, of course, exactly the right length. So, whether it'll get enough compression or not, that's a whole different story. But I think it will, actually. Now, whether this slotted plunger rod design can take that much force, well, that is also an entirely different matter. But we are going to try anyway. All right, we got the spring in there. Let's put it back together and see if it'll catch. Okay, that is a yes for the Serge 10. Let's look at some numbers. The stock draw weight was 4 kilograms. The stock FPS was 45, and the stock range was 30. Modified, it was getting a 7.5 kilogram draw, 75 FPS, and 45 feet. So not a huge improvement, and still not a, particularly war practical blaster, but it is a 10-shot revolver that is front pump. There aren't a whole lot of those. The Dominator is front pump, the Roto Fury is front pump, the Fury Fire, and some of those can take K26, so, there are definitely better options. But if this is what you have, now you know it can take a K26. It's also neat because it has the whole locking together mechanism, which is fun if you find that amusing. If nothing else, if you got enough of these, they could almost become a shield, because they're big enough if your group doesn't, if gun tags don't count, like in ours, gun tags don't count, so you can, in fact, you could get a whole bunch of these together and make a big shield out of them and block. I think that would be kind of fun, actually. Now I'm kind of tempted. I wonder if I've got another one of these. Anyway, so, yeah. Yes for the Serge 10, on to the next contestant. Our next contestant is the Ultimate Snipe Blast from Busby Air Blasters. This is part of the Ultimate system, in keeping with the whole blasters that connect to other blasters. They came out with a different line. They were all in the OD green. There were at least 4 of them. I have them all. When you put them all together, it's absolutely absurd. One of them's a rocket launcher, one of them's a flywheel, and then 2 of them are springers. So we're going to take a look at them. Starting with this one. It is a single-shot pistol. I don't know why it's called the Snipe, because it sure is all get out. Isn't a sniper rifle of any kind. But we're going to see if we can make it a little bit better by trying to put some K26 in it. Well, somebody thought it would be a good idea to glue the plunger head in place. I thoroughly disagree with that particular philosophy, but nobody asked me. Nope. K26 will not fit. Plunger tube is a little bit too small and seems to taper slightly as it goes down. There also really is not much room for additional compression in this blaster. Let's see if we can't find something that will suffice. I managed to find a spring that doubles up and appears to not impede the compression of the stock spring. We'll find out for sure when I try to prime it. Alright, that was a no for K26 for the Ultimate Snipe Blast, but we did put a heavier spring in there. Let's look at some numbers. The stock spring was 4.5 kilogram draw, it was getting 40 FPS, and about 25 feet of range. Modified, the spring is now 7 kilograms, the FPS is 0, and the range is 0. That's right, it doesn't fire at all, and I couldn't figure out why, and quite frankly, I can't be bothered. So, on to the next contestant. Our final contestant for the combining episode of Can It Take a K26, the Ultimate Berserker. The Berserker is, of course, part of the Ultimate system, which allows you to attach any of the other Ultimate blasters onto it. There are 4 that I know of, and they can all be combined at once, and it's absolutely absurd. I may run that in a war just for the absurdity, and because it's so big, it would actually function as a shield, which I think would be fantastic. So, let's get this thing open. It is a 20-round revolver, front pump, which is nice. Though, of course, small Busby handles that I'm not a huge fan of, but there are worse things. And it is also a rocket launcher. It has a pump on the back that needs some work. And then a rocket in the middle. It will fire Demolisher rockets just fine, It's got 2 triggers, one for the revolver and one for the air blaster, which is really, really cool, I think. Yeah, so let's see if this thing can take a K26, because as it is, the revolver's more than a little anemic. Okay, well, that is a disappointingly small plunger tube there. It will not fit K26, but for this, I am going to try one of these small K26 looking numbers. It's about the right length. It is the right size. I'm going to risk it. The question will, of course, be compression. But we got lots of extra room for compression on this thing. It's got a very short draw, so I'm not worried about that. What I am worried about is this brittle plastic plunger rod. But nothing ventured, nothing gained. Alright, that was a no for K26 for the Ultimate Berserker, but yes for a sizable spring upgrade. However, in order to actually get it to function on that heavier one, it's going to require a bit more work than is generally the purview of this this show. The first problem I ran into is the connection between the priming rod and the pump has failed, unfortunately. I'll probably need to do something probably involving an actual bolt, because right now it's just a peg, and the peg slipped and the whole thing cracked a little bit. So that will need to get bolted on and reinforced. The other issue is the barrels. These old Busby barrels are atrocious. They are very lousy fit except for the very base, and they have these barbed dart pegs on them, which is actually breaking. It split out pretty much every one of the newer Busby darts. It just tore them just because of the design. So yeah, the whole cylinder would need to get rebarreled, and the base would need to get reinforced. And while I was in there, who knows what other additions I might make. There's a lot of room in there. I might actually try to put in an entirely different cylinder, a bigger cylinder, one that could take K26, maybe something out of a Mega Blaster or something, because I really like the idea of this blaster for a war. I would definitely replace the handle, probably with a Maverick handle, as is my tendency for replacements on Busby blasters. But I really like the idea of a 20-shot revolver that has a rocket launcher in the middle, especially for our wars with rockets and all of that, and the ability to use the blaster with all the other blasters on it as a shield. I think that would be a really fun loadout, but that is going to take a lot more work than goes into these kinds of episodes. So for now, we can simply say, no, it won't take a K26, but it will take a spring upgrade, but it will require some reinforcements. So let's recap. Alright, for those of you keeping score at home or who just skipped to the end to see the results, that was a no for the Serge 6. That was a yes for the Serge 10. That was a no for the Ultimate Snipe Blast. And that was a no for the Ultimate Berserker, but yes to a sizable spring upgrade, but needs some additional reinforcements. So, there you have it for Busby's springers that attach to other springers, which I think is just a really neat idea. The snipe attaches here. These two attach together. This one I'm not particularly excited about, but the ultimate system I actually am looking forward to running in a war just for an absurd loadout. I don't know that I'd use the ultimate snipe blast, but I'd definitely use the ultimate berserker, the ultimate missile blast, and the ultimate rapid blast. All those combined make for a ridiculously large blaster that would work as an excellent shield, have 2 rockets, a semi-automatic revolver, and a pump-action revolver. So that could be a really fun loadout. So look forward to that. This one's going to need some more modifications, and I'm definitely going to do that. So, if you have any comments, concerns, questions, suggestions for future episodes, put them in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching.